welcome back to Crazy Bees. It is another crazy day around here. Last night we were working outside and noticed that the cardinal was coming over by our mulberry bush. And I showed you in the last video that we were starting to get some mulberries. Well, the cardinals found them. So we are making sure that we pick them on a daily basis as they are ripening up, and they are so good, so sweet, but they are dwarf black mulberries, so they are on the smaller side. At one point I would like to get the Pakistani mulberries. They're a longer mulberry and they are delicious also. But I went to make a parfait and I had no granola, and so I usually buy my granola from the store because convenience, but I decided today I'm going to make my own. I had 90% of the ingredients that I needed. In a couple of the recipes that I looked at, they had different things, so I'm just going to sub what I have instead of totally going with their recipe. So first we're going to start with our dry ingredients. So here I've got 4 cups of rolled oats. You want to use the old-fashioned rolled oats. You don't want to use the instant because you're not going to get that crispy texture that you're looking for in granola if you use an instant oat instead of your rolled oats. So here we're going to put the 4 cups of the rolled oats, and then I chopped up 1 cup of nuts. I added almonds and pecans. You can do peanuts, you can do walnuts, you can do any kind. If you don't want nuts at all, or if you're allergic to nuts, you just omit the nuts. But in this recipe, this is the basic granola recipe. So for this one, I'm just making the basic, and then I'm also going to be making another one that is more rustic, and I'm going to be adding some cranberries, or the craisins, and some golden raisins, and what else? Apricots to the other one that I'm going to be doing. So this one's just going to be the basic where I can add my fruit, and the other one will have dried fruit in it. So here is a cup of nuts, and you want them coarsely chopped. I used my Pampered Chef chopper. I've had this thing for years and I love it. You just put the stuff on a chopping board and press down on this, and the blades chop it and keep it all confined. You can use that on nuts, on vegetables, anything. It works really well. So my nuts, I always keep them in the freezer, and it keeps them fresh longer so that they don't get stale. So I have a couple of pecans here that didn't want to quite. And of course your almonds are going to be a bit chewier. So, you know, you wanna cut those. You can do it with a knife, or you can do it with the Pampered Chef, or whatever kind of chopping tool that you have. To that, I'm going to add half a cup of shredded coconut flakes. I'm using the unsweetened kind, and we're going to put that in there. And then we are going to mix all of this together. I had some coconut flakes, I had some coconut flakes along with my shredded coconut. So with the flakes, I just broke those up, and I'm using those too because you need to use up what you have before opening up something new, right? So that's mixed in. And now we're going to start with the wet ingredients. I have right here in this bowl, you need a half a cup of vegetable oil. I mean, not vegetable oil, a good quality oil. Try to stay away from vegetable oil. And here I have coconut oil. You can use avocado oil, olive oil, but I'm going to use coconut oil. I think that'll give it a good flavor along with the oil that we already have in here. I mean with the, I need to concentrate on what I'm saying. Along with the shredded coconut that we already have in there. To that, we are going to add a 1/4 cup of maple syrup. A 1/4 cup of honey. An 1/8 of a cup of brown sugar. I should have actually put the brown sugar in with my dry ingredients, but it'll be okay in here because it's just all going to be getting mixed together. I'm just going to mash that in there for a second here. And then to give it a little bit of extra flavor, I'm going to add a pinch of salt. I'm using Himalayan salt. A dash of nutmeg. And a dash of cinnamon. And a dash to me is about 1/8 to 1/2 teaspoon. But you can do it to your taste. So we're going to mix these ingredients really well. Get that brown sugar incorporated with the oil. And then we are going to add the wet ingredients to the dry ingredients. Now, somebody at the door, I had to stop and go answer the door. We're going to mix all of these ingredients together. And I've turned my oven on. I preheated it at 300 degrees. And over here I have a baking sheet lined with parchment paper. I'm not going to grease that because there's already oils in this granola. So you should not need to spray, and especially if you're using parchment paper. You want to make sure that this is really well incorporated though. Okay, that looks pretty good. Oh my gosh, it smells divine. Okay, now we're going to take our parchment lined sheet here, and we're going to pour our granola on the sheet. Scarlett's down here just waiting for me to drop something, which I often do, so I mean, she knows why she's over here, because I'm always dropping stuff for her to pick up. She had an almond earlier. I was cutting it and it flew right off the table. Okay, we're going to spread this out evenly on this pan. I am so excited for this. A bag of this at the grocery store would cost a fortune. And you would never even get half of what's on this sheet. So I can't wait to see how this turns out. And it wouldn't have all the nuts and stuff in it either. And definitely not coconut oil. Okay, so here's our pan. So we're going to put this in the oven for 30 minutes. And every 10 minutes, we're going to go and we're going to stir it so that it can get brown on all sides. So we'll come back after that 30 minutes and see what it looks like. All right, our granola is done. 30 minutes was really good. It is very hot, but you can see how nice and toasty it got. So I'm going to let that sit over here and let it cool. And after it cools, it'll be ready to break up and we'll see what it looks like when it cools. And we'll have to give it a little taste test too. So my main purpose with that granola was to use it with our berries. These are our mulberries and our strawberries from our garden. And I want to mix that in a parfait. I might even add some raspberries in there. And I'm going to use that with the basic granola recipe. The next recipe that we're going to do is more of a rustic recipe. So it's one that already has fruits in it. And so I'm going to be adding apricots, cranberries, or craisins, and golden raisins to the basic recipe. I was going to add some sunflower seeds that I had also, but I went and opened that package and it smelled terrible. You know that smell of old stale nuts? Bad. So you never want to use those because it just destroys the whole recipe. So we're going to start out again with our basic recipe. We have our 4 cups of dried oats, the old-fashioned rolled oats. We're going to put our brown sugar, which is 1/8 of a cup, into here. And then we are going to add our 1/2 cup of coconut, which is the unsweetened coconut. We are going to add a dash of salt. And in this recipe, I'm adding a little bit more of the nuts. So I chopped up 2 cups of the nuts instead of 1 cup that I was going to use in the basic recipe. So we're putting in 2 cups, and my mixture has the pecans and the almonds in it. I was going to try macadamia. I had some of those, and I bet that would have been really good with the shredded coconut also, but I'm bypassing that for now. So I'm not going to add my fruits until closer to the end because I don't want them cooking. I still want them to be nice and dried. I don't want them all getting all dried out. So I'll be adding the fruits at the end. Okay, so we're going to mix up our dry mixture. And I'm going to try not to get it all over the table this time. I almost feel like it was easier to work in the brown sugar into the oil. Because when I put in that packed brown sugar, it's not breaking up as easily as it did while it was in the oil. It broke up better in there. I might actually do it the other way again next time. Just add the sugar to the oil instead of to the dry ingredients. Because this is actually taking a little bit longer, making sure that I don't have any brown sugar clumps in here. If I was serving this to guests, I would wear gloves or something, but it's just for my family. And I've washed my hands, so. If I were making meatballs or something like that, I'd have my hands right in there. That's just the way we were taught on the farm. Get your hands in there. Even when I went back home to see my mom with my daughter, she was making a salad. And my mom was like, get your hands in there and mix that up. It was pretty funny. She just kind of looked at her like, what? Put my hands in it? Okay, so when I was pouring out my oatmeal, the container slipped out of my hand, so I have a little bit of oatmeal in my coconut oil here. So we're doing the half a cup of the coconut oil. We're doing the 1/4 cup of the maple syrup. Quarter cup of the honey. And then we're going to do our splash of our cinnamon. And you know what, you guys, I think I forgot to add my vanilla extract to that, but it's okay. Doing half a teaspoon of vanilla extract, 1/8 of a teaspoon of nutmeg. And we're gonna get this all mixed up and incorporated. If you could smell my house right now, it just smells so good. You know, sometimes when realtors will do open houses, I have a few clients that are realtors, and they'll get those plug-ins or whatever and put them in the wall for like sugar cookie or, you know, some kind of baked goodness. So the house smells really good when people walk through it to look at it for buying. I'm like, man, just stick one of these in the oven. Oh, smells so good. Okay, now we're gonna add this mixture, the wet mixture, to the oats. Now you guys, you can do a combination of anything that you want to in here. You can do any kind of dried fruit. Like behind me, I have my my dried apricots back there. And I've got the dried plums, the dried peaches, some dried apples. I'm definitely going to be using different combinations of fruit in this recipe. And of course, you can use different types of nuts. You can use different types of seeds. You can put in pumpkin seeds, sunflower seeds. I mean, any type of seed that you would want or that you love, just add it to that. I really wish my sunflower seeds would have been good, because that would have been really good in here. But if it's as good as I think it's going to be, I'm going to be making this a lot more often, so have to make sure that I have plenty of rolled oats on hand. If I like these as much as I think we're going to, I might just end up starting to buy rolled oats in bulk. Okay, Then we are going to take and we are going to layer this in these pans. My other two pans aren't as big as my first one, so I'm using two pans this time. Just because I want to make sure that it doesn't, you don't want to layer it too thick, because then it's not going to be able to brown correctly. So, but you don't want it so thin that it's going to burn either. So you just want a nice layer. And if you find that it's browning before, you know, if you did do a thinner layer, you just take it out a little bit earlier. Just don't have it in there for that full 30 minutes. And same with if you have more in your pan, just add to your time and keep turning it until you feel that it's the right consistency and the right texture that you want. So we're going to do the same thing here. We're going to have our oven preheated to 300 degrees. We're going to pop this in for 30 minutes and I'm going to stir it every 10 minutes. Some recipes call for just turning once in the middle, but with oats and things like that, I feel like turning a little bit more often. I just feel safer that way. I don't want my oats to burn. So I have two timers set. I have one set for the 30 minutes and then I have one set for every 10 minutes. So that when it goes off for the 10 minutes, I know that I have to stop whatever I'm doing. Because I'm always doing more than one thing and I get distracted. So after this is done, after it's 30 minutes, we'll come back. Alright, you guys, we're back. The granola is done. Now, my recommendation on your pan is to do it all in one pan, not to do it in two separate pans, because it was a little bit too thin, and some of my edges started burning. So I'm just going to scoop this out, and I'll clean this off in a minute. But I don't want to get this messed up with my, that's not bad. I was working on the next thing we're doing and I was like, well, that just doesn't smell good. So, okay, so we're gonna take, I think I'm still gonna keep this separate for now. We're gonna take our golden raisins. We'll put half in here and half in there. We'll do the same thing with our craisins. It's not going to really matter because at the end we're just mixing it all together anyway. But I want to try to evenly distribute it. Since this pan is still hot, You want to mix in your fruit while your granola is still hot, because once it cools for a little while, I'll show you and it'll make sense. It'd be way harder to mix it in and incorporate it if you want it, you know, kind of sticking to the granola. If you don't care if it sticks to the granola or not, I guess it doesn't really matter. But I want mine to kind of stick to it. Oh, this is so pretty. Beautiful color. Okay, here we go. Now, the other one is finished right here. And you can see, I'll do it up in this corner. You can see how it got really nice and crunchy. And it just dried up. So I'm gonna take this and I'm gonna put it in some jars, and we'll be storing it that way. And I cheated before I even got back on the camera and I tried some. It's so good, just so yummy. Absolutely recommend making this for your family. It's a money saver, and it's just delicious. So I'm gonna get this all cleaned up, and then I'm gonna be coming back to do our next project. Okay, I thought this whole time that I thought I was recording, it was not recording. So I'm going to explain to you guys what I had already totally explained. My son's birthday is tomorrow, and we are making a casserole for him. One of his favorite gifts is a homemade meal. So I always make him this meal. It's called a dried beef macaroni bake. And I just had this ready to go into the oven, and I was going to show you what it looked like when it was done, and I realized that I never hit record. So I'm going to put this recipe in the description box so that you know exactly what it is. But this is what it looks like. And it has noodles, elbow macaroni noodles, boiled eggs, peas, minced onion, minced garlic, cheddar cheese, cream of mushroom soup, milk, and frozen peas. And you can add any other vegetables that you would want to. To ours, we mixed corn that we had grilled previously and had frozen. And so I used the rest of that up in here. Oh, and the main ingredient is dried beef. So, as I said, I'll link the recipe in the description box below. But what we're gonna do now is I'm going to cover this back up with aluminum foil, and we are going to stick it in a 350 degree preheated oven for 50 to 60 minutes. When it comes out nice and bubbly and a little bit of brown on the edges, then it's ready to go. So as soon as this is done and it's ready to come out of the oven, we'll come back and show you what it looks like. It has been an hour, and as you can see, this casserole is nice and bubbly, and it's a little bit brown on the edges, and it is absolutely ready to go. Now I had a feeling, okay, this is the one with the corn. It's like, I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to tell. And here we go. This is what's for dinner tonight. And here is what's for dessert. We have our granola with our fruit. We have some raspberries, strawberries, and mulberries in here, and some Greek yogurt. Have a great week, you guys.